Hey guys, it's Kip here from KDC Marketing, and in today's video I'm going to show you the basics of Wix CMS for your Wix Studio websites. So I'm in my Wix Studio dashboard here. I'm going to go to create new site and I'm going to do a studio blank canvas. And then while this is loading, we're going to enable the CMS or the content management system for Wix Studio websites, which is such an underutilized feature of any Wix website because you can use CMS on the Wix editor or Wix Studio. So I always start with this blank canvas here, and I'm going to just add this CMS to my site. So it's over here on the left hand side, and if I click this, it talks a little bit about what CMS is, but I'm just going to click add to site for right now. So that's the first step into adding CMS, and it's basically a way to streamline managing your content. Once you get it created, you only have to design it once, and then it's really easy to manage on the front end and back end. So I'm going to start with a preset just to show a quick example here. So if you wanted to have the latest news, for example, we're going to add this to the website, and it's going to start creating the pages and creating the content. So here's my collection, which acts like a database. So if I go back to the CMS, this is where my collections show up here. And right now I only have one collection. I have this news collection, and inside of here I have a database that looks kind of like a spreadsheet. This is the table format of my data. So I have my title, date, long description, image, full name, and short description. And this title over here, this slug, is what drives the URL slug over here. So you'll see that on the news item, it says news title 6. If I were to change this to grand opening, then over here, my slug is going to change as well. Now it says grand opening. So if you ever want to change the URL of the page, you do it where this slug is listed. So here's my table that I have. I can also manage my fields. I can add in some ones that the system has, or I can add in my own new field. So I'm going to show you just a couple of the fields you can add, and there's quite a bit. So there's these fields here, which is, like text. Rich text has formatting, rich content. You can add links and media. And there's a bunch of things that you can do with these different fields here. URL, numbers, Boolean, which is kind of what you'd use for a featured field. You have media fields, so images, galleries, videos, documents. You have time and location, so address, and then you can also use custom code. You can use this JavaScript object or this JavaScript array using the Velo code that Wix has. So you can add more fields here. Like if you wanted to add a link for each of these, you would add this URL field. You would click choose type. You can keep it this field name, or you can change it, and you get some other things here that you can add. You can make this a required field, and the default value, if you hover over these, it tells you what you can put in as the default for each new one if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to click save just to show you what will happen when we add a new field. You can see my URL field showed up over here. I can drag this wherever I want. So maybe in my table, so maybe I want it here. And then I can add a URL in here and add a URL for each item. So let's go back to the front end for a second and see what happened once we created this CMS collection. So right now we have the news list, and these pages over here in our page and menu is notated that it's a dynamic page. That's what CMS is. It's dynamic content. It's updated in real time, and when you change that table, it changes the items and elements and content on the front end. So this is the list, and you can see here that this one says grand opening because I changed that one in the CMS collection, whereas these other ones are just the defaults here. So if I go to the item, now I'm getting into each item, and each item has its own page as well. So now here's my grand opening page, the title, the date, time, and then this is still placeholder content. This takes me back to the list of news items, and then these will actually scroll through to the other, these are buttons that will scroll through to the other items. So if I click next, it's going to take me to the next item. Now this is good practice here to have these. I think to have these next and this button back to the list is really important. If there's no way for the user to navigate back to the list, they can get lost. And then these also, there's the button here that takes you to the item, but the image will take you there as well. So they've enabled a click action on that, and I can show you what I mean by that in a minute. But the one thing I want to point out is if you were to do this not using dynamic content and not using CMS, what you'd have in your pages and menu over here is you'd have a little page for each one of these items. So it would say main page is home, it would say grand opening has a page, news title 5, news title 4, news title 3, and it can just be a big headache to manage all these pages, especially if you start to get more and more news items over time. Maybe eventually you have 50 or 60 news items, and they all just need to have the same format. If you have them as individual pages, static pages over here, it's going to get really tricky to manage those. So that's the value of using dynamic pages, is you can manage all of them through your CMS. So whenever a new news item comes up, you just click add item and you would type in the fields. So you would do news title, let's just say 6, and then we can kind of just copy in these fields here. I'm just copying and pasting just like you would a spreadsheet. And then I can pick an image here. And let's pick something, a building. Sure, we'll do this one here. And I'm just going to copy the current format. And then I'm going to copy this field as well. And then we'll see this show up here on my front end. And not only did it show up in my list, it has its own page created for it. So if I go into my preview, I'm going to be able to see an item page for this with the image and everything in it. There it is. And then if I were to change any of this content, it would show up here. So let me do that real quickly on a couple of these. So let me go back to my collection here, and I'm just going to say something like, this is our new office in New York. And for this one, come see our grand opening in Florida. Okay, now if I go back to my front end, I'm going to preview again. You can see that these updated here, and then if I click in, they updated here as well. So let me show you on the back end what's happening. So these elements that are normal elements that you would find in your quick add elements here, like an image, a title, a paragraph, these are all just individual elements. So they're connected to a data set. They're connected to the CMS. And so you can see here that the data set that this is connected to, this little gear is the CMS icon, the connector icon. You can see that it's connected to this news item. Now, if there were other data sets, you'd see them here, and you can always add a new one. So it's connected to this data set, and the specific connection here, the field is connected to this title. But if I were to change this to something else, you can see that that changes to full name. So whatever it's connected to, it's going to populate in real time. And then down here, same thing. This is going to be connected to an image source, so that's connected to the image field. And then if you want it to actually link to something, you would just add, there's some click actions you can have it take here, some actions. So you could have it link to a URL. You could have this a link to the next dynamic page. There's lots of different actions you can do. And then same with each of these elements here. Each one is connected to something. If it's not connected to something in your data set, it's not going to change in real time. So it has to be connected if you want it to be dynamic content. And then you also have your data set settings over here. If you click into that, you can see what mode it is. So read and write, So for this case, since this is the basic overview, reading is just for the visitor to view or a user to view it. If it was right, you'd have to have an input field, something like a form for them to fill out. So most of the time you're just going to need this read. And then the maximum items displayed and the sort, you get some sorting options here. So you can customize your data set as well, and the permissions, because the permissions say, do you want to show content? And we can talk about the permissions in a second. So I just wanted to show you that that's how this is working on the front end, or on the front end, that these are connected to these data sets. And for example, this button has a click action that takes them to the next dynamic page. This one has a click action that takes them to the previous dynamic page. So those are set to that. And then this one that takes them back, it's connected to the news list page. So it's taking you back to the parent page of the dynamic content. So you can go in and change all these if you want to change what's showing dynamically. And then up here too, if you'd want to see, well, what does news title 03 look like? Okay, that looks good. You can just kind of scroll through each of these this way as well up here. So let me go back to the news list here. Again, if you click into the gear, you'll see the data set and the data settings. So here's where I can customize on my list page how many items will display. Each of these little cards is an item. So right now it's set to 12. So if we go back to the previous example of if we have 50 items all of a sudden, maybe we want to display 50 here. So we could go in and change this number. Maybe we only want 12, but we want to add a load more button. So in that case, we would have to add a button here, and then we would have to set a click action to load more. So when we see this button here, there's a load more click action. Oh, there would be if we had enough items. So we could set a load more to load more items if we wanted to. And then you can see all the different connections here. It's showing you the date, the description, the title, the button, the image. You can see what's connected and what's not on your list item page. And then this is just a regular, this is not connected to anything. You can see this isn't blue, so it's not connected to anything. Same with this here. So that's not dynamic, but you could make it dynamic if you wanted. If it is connected, you'll see it blue like this. Okay, so let me go in and show a couple more basic things. And so you have your permissions and settings, or permissions and privacy, and your collection settings here. So collection settings is really important because you can control item visibility, and you can also set the default status for new items. And I like to set this as hidden because in most cases that's what you'll want to do. So if you do set this, you'll see that this table is going to change now, and these all have a status. And I can make these visible or hidden with a few clicks. And this is where managing the content really becomes more powerful and so much easier if you use the CMS. So if I want to hide my grand opening, let's say it's only there for a limited time, and then once we open it's not relevant anymore, I just click this visible and then change status to hide selected items. You can see that this became hidden. And now if I go back to the front end, grand opening's gone. So instead of having to go into my page over here, right click it and click delete and manage it that way every single time, all I have to do is go into my CMS and I can hide and show items at will. So if I want to hide 4 pages at a time, I just hide them, and now there should only be 3 pages showing here. And my page, since it's a dynamic content page, is going to update in real time and still look nice. If I want to show them again, all I have to do is go in here and click the status. I'm going to change it all to visible to show. And once this loads, then all of these will be visible. And just like that, I've got my items back and they populate back in. So the other thing is, which we might cover in a different video, is just the collection settings here. You can get into how this content's displayed, And there's different settings, so it can be for everyone or members, and depending on what you're trying to do with your dynamic content, either to show it or collect it, or if there's some custom features, you can set them in here. And there's quite a bit you can do. So the other thing I wanted to show is you can import items. So if you have a spreadsheet already, you can just import that in as a CSV file. You can also export these items out. So you can filter the data, or you can do the entire collection, and you can export this and it'll export your data. I'm going to cancel this just because it might take a bit to load. But there's also some other views you can use if you want to do a list view. And here it's going to look a little bit different, where you've got your title, date, and this would be more like a easy to use content management system for your client, I would say. And you can change the status up here to hidden, visible, or schedule. So that's the list view, and the gallery view is similar. It just shows them here as kind of cards, but when you open them, similar view here. I prefer the table view just because most of the time it's faster for me to just do everything here in this table view. That's the one that I use the most. So that's a quick overview on the Wix CMS, and I can't stress enough that this is such an underutilized feature in Wix Studio. You can use these to create listings, like job board listings. You create real estate listings. You can use them for your testimonials. You can use them for your team members. You can use them for your services, your pricing, all kinds of things that you can use the CMS and dynamic content for. Anytime you want to reuse something too on multiple pages, you want to use CMS. So you have it here as this news title or latest news and then the items, but you could also add a section to the home page that ties into the CMS. So you could do something like, let's add a repeater here. So we can just add a quick repeater, and I'm just going to do this super fast just to show you that it's possible. So I'm going to stretch out my repeater here and give it some dimension. So I've got my title here and my image, and that's what I'm going to do for my repeater here. I'm going to center align this, and I'm going to connect this to a data set. So I'm going to add the data set. It's going to be my news. I'm going to create it. I might say news data set homepage just to change it up. And then this text is connected, and you can see it already populated more items because I have 7 items in my collection. And so I just need to redo this a little bit here. Kind of get it how I want it. Okay, so now I just connect this to the title. And it's a little too big, so I'm going to change my design here to a heading 6. Okay, so now I've got that. I'm going to bring my image up, and I'm going to connect my image to a field as well. So the image source is connected to image. And then if I really wanted to make this a functional section, maybe there's a button that I put in that says learn more. And I connect this, and it's connected to the click action is connected to the news item. And I'll change the text to learn more. So when you start doing things at scale where you have lots of items and pages, this is how you do it. You use the Wix CMS. It's so much better and so much easier to manage than if I put these in a stack. I can get these all spaced right, 24 pixels apart. Maybe I want them a little closer, 20 pixels apart. I'm going to align them to the center. I'm going to put a little bit of padding on my items, so everything stays boxed in to my, and you can see that padding there is the green boxed into my item. So now I've got a section on my homepage in addition to my news item and news list page that's using the same collection. And I could do a custom sort here on my homepage that would allow me to, maybe I only want to show things that start with news. So I can say the title, oh, these are just based on A to Z. So this is sorting it in alphabetical order. So that's kind of nice. But I can do other custom filters or sorts here. So you can add filters. And this is what I was thinking here. Text is, and I can say news. And see, it didn't pull in because there's something that I need to fix there. Contains, there we go. So now my grand opening one is hidden, but all my news ones show up. So you can do so many things to filter these, sort these, add them on multiple pages, and it's really a powerful tool. So we're just scratching the surface right now. I just wanted to show you a basic overview. This is a just preset collection that we would definitely have to go in and change to make it our own. We'd have to change these descriptions and dates and titles. But the last thing that I want to show is that you actually can edit the CMS from your website backend. So once you have the site set up and everything, you get the CMS over here on the dashboard, and you can go into your news and you can change things from here that will affect the front end in real time. So again, the whole idea is to be able to manage your content dynamically, make it more easy for you or for your clients to manage their content. And you can do it right here from the dashboard. You don't even have to go to the front end once you get it set up. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that as of right now, Wix Studio doesn't have the capability to do conditional fields for CMS. It's something that I hope they'll come out with in the future because it would be awesome. But if you don't know what that means, a conditional field is basically where it would show on some of the CMS pages and not on others. So for example, maybe on this specific item, I want the image to show, but on the rest, I don't. That's not currently possible in Wix Studio. If you set it up, if you're using the CMS, once you get the item page designed, they all have to follow that same format. So you can't say it will only show the long description on these 3 and don't show it on these last 4, or you can't say that. But hopefully in the future that'll be something that will come out so that you can make further customizations with Wix CMS. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. It's something that I use all the time for my own websites and websites for clients, and I don't know how I ever lived without it. Now that I've figured this out and continue to work with it, it saves me hours of time managing my own websites and sites for clients. It is so awesome. So the more you play around with it, test things out and figure it out, the more comfortable you get and the more use cases you see for it. But there is a bit of a learning curve and it can seem really intimidating at the beginning. So I want to try to break down how to set this up step by step so that you feel like it's possible for you to do the same thing. And if you remember from the beginning of the video, we just had to add it to our website, and then we used a preset, and then I kind of showed you how it's working, how you do this part on the back end, but also how it's connected on the front end. And I'll be honest, that's taken me some time to get familiar with it, and sometimes I can't figure out why didn't that work, and I have to play around with it and test it out. But the more you test it out, the more comfortable you get, and the faster you get at setting these up. All right, well, that's all I have for today's video, and I will see you in the next video.